Let me begin by reading from a Fairfax County mother's remarks to this board. The physical condition of most of our schools, the overcrowding, the lack of modern equipment, and of such simple necessities as adequate toilet facilities could not be more distressing. My child is happy at school, and the other children are too, because the principal has a wonderful staff of teachers. The situation is not fair to them, but by devotion to duty and long hours of work, they try to conquer their appalling handicaps. It is a triumph of mind over environment. Our public school teachers will certainly get the front seats in heaven. Shortly after this testimony was delivered to this board, Fairfax County voters heeded this mother's call to pass the first school bond in the history of Fairfax County with 67% of the vote. The date was May 31st, 1950, and the bond amounted to $10.5 million to support alterations to 40 existing schools, as well as the construction of 11 additional schools, including the school in which we sit now, the county's first high school for African Americans. Even though this testimony was offered before this board almost 70 years ago, we are faced with a similar situation today, yet our challenge is far, far greater in scale. Sagging hallways, stained carpeting, musty locker rooms, poorly ventilated science labs, restrooms reminiscent of truck stops. These are the highlights of a tour today through Fairfax County's 5 aptly named legacy high schools. These are also known as West Springfield, Langley, Herndon, Oakton, and Falls Church, which were built between 1965 and 1968 and have only now, 50 years later, begun to undergo a full renovation. These schools offer a view of the dark, dank underbelly of arguably the nation's best performing school district. They are the manifestation of years of failed leadership from county and state elected officials who have forced us to economize until we burst at the seams. They are symbols of the biggest crisis facing Fairfax County public schools since the post-World War II population boom. And many of us on this board have been sounding the alarm about this crisis for years. 2 years ago, when I went to vote at my polling place, which happens to be located in one of the legacy high schools, I walked in behind a fellow voter who had no idea a school board member was walking directly behind her. Her words remain etched into my conscience because they were particularly stinging. She said to the person she was walking with, "See what Fairfax County schools look like? It's like we're living in a third world country. This is why I send my kids to private school." In spite of these conditions that our principals and teachers face in their schools and classrooms, they work miracles every day, and yes, today they are still more than deserving of the front seats in heaven. But the primary difference between today and 1950 is that, at that time, Fairfax County's leaders were able to muster the courage and fortitude to stand up and fight for better school facilities. In 1950, the county's population had doubled in size over the previous 3 years, increasing from 40,000 to 80,000 residents. Fairfax County was holding elementary classes in boiler rooms, in partitioned auditoriums, and in reclaimed cafeterias. The post-war growth was only accelerating, and they already had 77 temporary classrooms that housed 2,200 students. Sound familiar? The school board, along with Superintendent W.T. Woodson, was willing to admit that they had a problem on their hands. Had Superintendent Woodson and the school board not taken that heroic step of issuing the first school bond in Fairfax County history, our school system likely would have collapsed. Over the coming 2 decades, from 1950 to 1970, the student population grew from a mere 17,000 students to a staggering 133,000 students. The speed of our projected growth today is similarly uncertain, but we know that with the expansion of the Silver Line and housing growth in Tyson's Corner and elsewhere, our population can only increase. Instead of reclaiming farmland for single-family homes and crafting a suburban landscape, our task now is to build upward. All the while, it appears that our leaders lack the courage or foresight to properly plan for it. That is why it falls on our community and our school board to call critical attention to this issue. If 77 trailers housing 2,200 students was unacceptable to Fairfax County citizens in 1950, why would a number more than 10 times that amount be acceptable now? Today we have more than 820 trailers housing 20,000 students. Let that sink in. We now have more than 10 times the number of trailers and students in trailers than we did in Fairfax County when they embarked on its greatest building spree in history. If our students who go to class each day in a trailer were a school district unto themselves, they would be the 14th largest school system in the state, around the size of Arlington County or the city of Richmond. Let me say that again. The number of Fairfax County students that have classes in trailers is on par with the entire school-age population of Arlington County or Richmond City. That is a travesty, that is an embarrassment, and it is unacceptable. It has long been the case that our extremely able facilities staff, including Jeff Plattenberg and Kevin Sneed, have had to sit before this board and say with a straight face and only a hint of irony that they are the largest trailer dealers on the East Coast. Our trailer situation is yet another visible and shameful manifestation of our facilities crisis. A few months ago, Mr. Moon, Ms. Evans, and I attended an event at Glen Forest Elementary in the Culmore area, and the principal seemed resigned to the fact that more of her students were housed in trailers than in the actual school building. Even then, Glen Forest is a far cry from the elementary school that boasts the most temporary classrooms in the county, McNair, which has a grand total of 22 trailers. Where is the outrage? The leadership, and yes, the outrage, must start with us. I call on my colleagues tonight to send a direct and unambiguous message to the residents of Fairfax County and to our funding authority at all levels. On behalf of our students and teachers, we must no longer tolerate this intolerable facilities crisis. In the amendment before the board, I am calling for an increase in capital cash flow of $118 million for a total bond allocation of $273 million per year, which would bring FCPS in line with industry standards of a 25-year school replacement cycle and eliminate all of our trailers. And let me be clear, this investment would not take into account the $50 million that is needed now for major maintenance, a number that will continue growing exponentially if it continues to go unaddressed. Some may say that this is a large request, and I certainly agree. But Madam Chairman and colleagues, this ask reflects very real and critical needs of this system. Contrary to other amendments before the board tonight, this amendment doesn't pick a random number. It reflects our documented, real needs. Just as a 50-year replacement cycle is unacceptable, so is a 37-year replacement cycle. We should not push for anything less than the industry standard 25-year cycle. Some may also say that our county debt ratios will not allow the county to adopt a bond increase of this magnitude. That may be so, but it is the job of this board to represent our constituencies and advocate for our real needs. Just as we advocated for a needs-based operational budget, we should advocate for a needs-based capital budget. By supporting this amendment, we will send a signal that this board will no longer stand aside while our capital cash flow remains at levels adopted more than a decade ago at a time of flat school enrollment. We know a population influx is coming. The only question that remains is whether we will do anything about it now or instead continue passing the buck to the next generation. If we don't take a stand on behalf of our community and call attention to it now, who will? I respectfully call on my colleagues to support this amendment for our current generation of students and teachers, many of whom have known nothing but the inside of a trailer. I also call for your support on behalf of the future generations of students, just as our forebears did in 1950. Tonight, in the spirit of past boards, let us again muster the courage to rise to the calling of our office and take this appropriately bold stand on behalf of our community.